Hello guys, good evening. It's Essie Sibanda here. I think we are at the end of our 7 days of video, and we ended the 7 days of the steps of dealing with grief yesterday. But today we're going to round off, and I've been watching out for you guys' suggestions of what you want us to discuss today, possibly to end up this show we've been having, or if you had any questions on what we spoke about. And no one yet has asked me anything, as requested that we talk about anything in particular. And if we go back to where we spoke about, we possibly spoke about concerns, allowing yourself to grieve. We spoke about allowing for sad days and low days. We spoke about not worrying about what people say about your feelings. We spoke about possibly keeping a journal and diarizing your feelings. We spoke about possibly the other things where we spoke about packing your grief so that you can deal with the real issues which are at hand after a bereavement. Possibly you find things like fighting for properties, and or possibly people coming to take, some people have had their children taken away from them, and those are issues which are sort of real, which will make you sort of get strong for that moment so that you can deal with that. And so those are the things we actually spoke about, mostly in a nutshell, just to round off that. And I was just thinking, because when I was thinking about what we talk about today, and then just thinking, we are dealing with the coronavirus, the COVID-19 worldwide. And being the NHS, I work for the NHS. I'm a nurse, but now I support nurses who are in the front line, and it's quite a busy time for us because we are trying by all means to support everybody else who is in the forefront, or those who have been infected, or those who think they can't work, those who think they've got some conditions which actually discredit them from working at the moment, and which need shielding so that they are protected. So there's a lot of things we are actually dealing with at the moment. But what I wanted to talk about was possibly dealing with grief, because at the moment we are dealing with grief in sort of so many forms. I think the first form, which is quite unique, which possibly people are not talking about, is to be forced to stay indoors. And when you're forced to stay indoors, there's something, you have lost control of what you can do. You have lost the freedom to be able to move about, go where you want to go. It's only people like us who are traveling and going to work, obviously because we are key workers and all things like that. But that grief now, grieving for possibly, I would say, things which you are no longer supposed to do. So I sort of see that sort of grief going into people who possibly find themselves immediately disabled, and they're no longer able to do things on their own, or they haven't got into that transition period where they have been helped and have got assistive devices which can help them do what they used to do, but not obviously in a way they used to do previously, but being able to facilitate their movements and things like that. So that's the grief which I thought about today, talking about. Then I thought about the second grief is for the nurses on the front line who are dealing with watching patients die, and these patients are unable to see their relatives, and also the relatives are not allowed to go into there because of all isolation and all barrier nursing protecting themselves. And I just thought this is quite big. It's quite big in the sense that, you know, for the nurses who are dealing, it's very difficult for you to be able to consult somebody to say, listen, you can't go in and see your relative who's very sick, and then to come out and deliver the news that your relative is no more there. And I think, the nurses and the doctors and the medical professionals and people who are looking after all these critically ill people who are passing away, they are loaded with emotions, and they have to pack these emotions aside so that they are able to deal with this pandemic. They're able to look after these patients. They are able to support these patients, but emotionally they are all being drained. So I think that's grief which is actually going to affect so many of us dealing with this thing whenever it is going to end. And I thought I should, just mention that every sort of day I try to think about these people in the front line, and thinking, we should be able to assist them to deal with what's going on at the moment, and assist them to be able to deliver their best, and just for them to know that we are aware they are doing a splendid job, that we are aware that they are trying their best, that we are aware that they are in the front line. It's like being in a war. And, also, so many of these people have actually moved away from home. They've checked themselves into hotels, and they've left their families to go and care for patients. And that sort of loss of connectivity with their own families is just going to impact on their mental well-being as well. So there are so many issues which are at bay at the moment, which are at hand, which are happening, and possibly we are not sort of taking time, or possibly we don't have time to be looking at that aspect of that thing. But it's one thing I thought, we should talk about. One thing I thought I should actually address, and just to actually take this opportunity to say, the NHS heroes, there are so many people who are working there. I know when the newspapers come out, half the time they show sort of one demographic, but I know so many ethnic minorities in the NHS who are actually working very hard to, to join in this battlefield, to fight the fight of the corona infection, and trying to make sure people are well, and they're doing well in themselves, and also looking after all their physical needs as well as looking after themselves. And mind you, these are people who possibly are coming out of very long shifts and they can't even get food to eat. So there's so many things which are at play at the moment. So yeah, so that's how I wanted sort of to round off dealing with grief. And possibly maybe I'll start putting a LinkedIn or maybe not, a LinkedIn series on grief, just to see how best we can support the heroes at work, the NHS heroes at work, and also just trying to support those who are emotional. There are so many people who've been very visibly tearful, who had come on to either Facebook Live just to say they are tearful, just pleading with people who have no issues of going out to stay at home so that we can possibly try and contain the spread of this coronavirus. So, yeah, that's how I wanted to end up the grief series. Okay. Thank you, Mining Pau, for watching. And thank you, Mining Jessica, for joining us and for watching. And I think we still need to discuss what we are going to be talking about from here onwards again, and see what sort of topic we could put out there which is engaging. It doesn't mean we won't be able to get back to grief if anybody is dealing with bereavement or dealing with loss, be it loss of a person, loss of a relationship, just like I've just said about the NHS, where so many staff are staying away from their family, and because they're staying away from their families, it means they've got that loss of connectivity to their families. And then we spoke about the loss of freedom, at the moment, because everybody is being advised to stay indoors and stay away and stay at home so that to contain the virus. So that is a loss which is very possibly detrimental to so many people's mental health and mental well-being, because if you usually need to interact with people so that your mood lifts, and all of a sudden you find yourself you have to stay in and you don't have anybody possibly who lives with you to be able to interact with, it means it's going to impact the way you feel in yourself, and it's actually going to affect possibly the way you see yourself. So that's another loss which we will talk about. And then you've got the loss which has been topical on the news at the moment, people who are in domestic violence situations, who have been locked in with somebody who is abusing them, and that sort of loss of freedom, possibly a bit of being able to get out of the house to go and have a breather from this abuse. It's also going to affect their mental well-being. So I'm just sort of worrying that, okay, overall, after all this is done and finished, because obviously the coronavirus is something which is just passing, it will pass and go. But I think it's the after effects which we need to be mindful of, dealing with things like supporting people at work with mental health issues now, post that. And then you've got all those people who had mental health issues already, who are worried about, getting contaminated. And there we are talking about getting contaminated from the coronavirus. So it just means that their anxiety levels are going to be increased, and they'll be worried more, and they're going to try and start doing their rituals more and more, which is detrimental to their health as well. So it's just a time to be mindful, to think about everybody else who is going through whatever they are going through, and support each other, support one person at a time. And if we do a human chain connection, if I lift you up, you lift the other one up. If Paul lifts somebody up, and Jessica will lift somebody up, and then you find each and every one of us has got somebody, and those people will also be lifting other people up. So that's all what we're going to do. And if I don't see anything, any suggestion of what we are going to talk about from this series, Possibly from about Friday, I might start another series. I just don't know which topic we are. Remember, we said bara, it's create, it's birth, it's rara, it's to give birth. So we want to create hope uh, in social interactions. So any topic we can talk about, because it's all social and it's all interaction. It's all human beings, and we are beings, and being beings, we need to connect and interact with each other. That's what we are created to be. So guys, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you a bit later. Watch this space, and for today, good night and keep safe. Please wash your hands as you go into the houses and as you get to work, and make sure you moisturize your hands as well, because we are defatting the skin. It means we need to moisturize more than ever so that they don't become dry and they don't become cracked, because otherwise we're going to start having another problem. And yeah, that's all from me. Good night and God bless you. Bye.